May 2nd, 2025, 3:47 a.m. While the rest of the world slept in the quiet coastal air of Nova Scotia, a mobile home on Gearlock Road was humming with activity. But it wasn't the sound of voices or footsteps. It was the rhythmic mechanical thrum of a washing machine. Outside, the woods were dark and thick. The same woods where, just hours later, RCMP officers and frantic volunteers would be combing through dense brush, calling out the names of two missing children, Lily and Jack Sullivan. Inside the home, as search parties eventually began their work, investigators noticed something that felt instinctively wrong. The washing machine wasn't just finishing a load. It was warm to the touch. It had been running multiple cycles through the darkest hours of the morning, at a time when the occupants claimed to be fast asleep. In a missing persons case, every second is a heartbeat. While 160 searchers deployed across 4 square kilometers of heavily wooded terrain, using helicopters, drones, and police dogs, the RCMP Major Crime Unit began to look inward. They turned their attention away from the trees and toward a small laundry area off the kitchen. What they found would transform a search and rescue mission into a high-stakes forensic puzzle. They would analyze the drum, the drain trap, and the internal digital logs. The data they recovered would raise chilling questions. Why was someone doing laundry at 3 a.m. while 2 children were vanishing? Why were the settings pushed to the absolute limit? And most importantly, what was being washed away? This is a forensic breakdown of the Sullivan investigation, a case where a common household appliance became the silent witness to a potential tragedy. As we peel back the layers of digital logs and chemical traces, the normal routine of a family home begins to look like a desperate attempt to erase the truth. When the RCMP first arrived at the Sullivan residence, the scene appeared deceptively mundane. Breakfast dishes sat in the sink. Beds bore the indentations of sleep. Toys were scattered across the living room. But the laundry room told a different story. The washing machine and dryer were warm, not hot, but recently used warm. In the modern era, appliances have memories. The Sullivan's machine was a recent model, equipped with a digital brain that recorded every turn of the drum. Investigators worked with the manufacturer to extract the internal logs, and the data was staggering. Between 2:37 a.m. and 4:51 a.m., the very hours Daniel Martell claimed to be sound asleep, the machine had run 6 consecutive cycles. These weren't quick wash settings. Each cycle was configured for heavy duty, using the hottest water temperature available and programmed for an extra rinse. This is a configuration designed for aggressive cleaning, the kind used for extreme soil or deep stains. The timeline was a direct contradiction to the initial statements provided to police. When confronted, the story shifted. Daniel Martell admitted he had been up, claiming insomnia drove him to be productive with his work clothes. But the physical evidence refused to cooperate with his narrative. When police opened the dryer, they didn't find heavy work gear. They found a single load of casual clothing, jeans, a shirt, socks, belonging to Martell. The clothes were still damp. The cycle interrupted. The math didn't add up. If the machine ran 6 full cycles over 2 hours, where were the other 5 loads? If the goal was productivity, why was the drum now empty? Investigators began to realize that the laundry wasn't a chore. It was a process. They began to treat the machine not as a utility, but as a crime scene. They were no longer just looking for Lily and Jack in the woods. They were looking for them in the fibers and the fluids left behind in the machine's hidden crevices. Forensic science is the art of finding what was meant to stay hidden. The RCMP forensic team knew that even the most aggressive wash cycle leaves a signature. They began with luminol, a chemical that seeks out the iron in hemoglobin, under ultraviolet light. In the shadows of the laundry room, the drum of the washing machine began to glow with an eerie blue light. The reactions weren't uniform. They were concentrated in specific patterns. While luminol can trigger false positives from certain cleaners, the intensity suggested that biological material, specifically blood, had been processed through the machine. But the drum was just the beginning. The investigators moved to the drain trap, the curved pipe beneath the machine designed to catch debris. It is a graveyard for everything the machine tries to flush away. From this trap, technicians extracted liquid and solid particles, submitting them for urgent DNA analysis. The results were a turning point. The DNA didn't just belong to the adults in the house. It was a match for Lily and Jack Sullivan. Forensic analysts found more than just skin cells. They found traces consistent with bodily fluids and tissue fragments, material that went far beyond what we found on a child's worn T-shirt. Perhaps the most damning discovery was the chemical profile of the water. Testing revealed a concentration of bleach so high it defied any standard laundry practice. Bleach is the enemy of DNA. It is a tool of erasure. At 1:47 a.m., just an hour before the wash cycles began, surveillance footage from a 24-hour convenience store showed a purchase, a large 3.7-liter container of bleach. When police arrived hours later, that container was nearly empty. More than 3 liters of bleach had been used in a single night. As the searchers outside called into the darkness, someone inside was using every chemical and mechanical resource available to scrub the environment clean. The question was no longer something that happened in the house, but exactly what had been destroyed in those 6 cycles. As the forensic data from the washing machine grew more disturbing, investigators began a physical inventory of the Sullivan home. They asked family and friends to look at the rooms and identify what was missing. The results added a new layer of suspicion to the 6 cycles mystery. Entire sets of bedding were gone. Specific towels that had been seen in the bathroom just a day prior had vanished. A bathroom mat was missing. Several articles of clothing belonging to Lily and Jack were nowhere to be found. They weren't in the laundry baskets. They weren't in the dryer. And they weren't in the trash. This absence of physical evidence was, in itself, evidence. If the DNA of the children was found in the drain trap and the bedding was missing, the conclusion was harrowing. The missing loads of laundry were likely the very items that held the answers to the children's fate. The timeline was now tightening like a noose. 1:47 a.m., a jug of bleach is purchased. 2:37 a.m., the first heavy-duty cycle begins. 3:30 a.m., a neighbor hears a vehicle start and sees lights on in the home. 4:30 a.m., another neighbor sees a figure carrying heavy garbage bags to a vehicle. 4:51 a.m., the final wash cycle ends. Forensic psychologists consulted by the RCMP noted the organized nature of this behavior. This wasn't the frantic, disorganized panic of someone who had just suffered an accidental tragedy. This was methodical. To operate a machine through 6 cycles, to manage the timing of a bleach purchase, and to systematically remove specific linens suggests a person who is calm, focused, and executing a plan of concealment. The investigators were no longer looking at a simple disappearance. They were looking at a cleanup operation. While the community rallied with hope, the evidence inside the mobile home on Gearlock Road was pointing toward a much darker reality. The machines had stopped running, but the story they told was only just beginning to be heard. The investigation moved into an even more granular phase. RCMP experts in laundry forensics, a highly specialized field, dismantled the machine entirely. They focused on the rubber door seal, the gray gasket that prevents leaks. Because of its folds and pockets, it is one of the most reliable traps for trace evidence in a household. Inside the fold of the seal, they found what the 6 cycles of hot water and bleach couldn't quite wash away: microscopic fibers and textile fragments. These fibers were cross-referenced and matched the material of the bedding known to be missing from the children's room. The expert's conclusion was definitive. The pattern of evidence, the DNA in the trap, the tissue in the seal, and the luminol in the drum, was consistent with items heavily contaminated with biological material being processed through the machine. It wasn't just a few drops of blood. It was an event that required a total scrub of the environment. Despite this, the legal battle was just beginning. Defense attorneys for Daniel Martell were quick to challenge the findings. They argued that in a small mobile home, transfer DNA is everywhere. Of course, the children's DNA would be in the washing machine. They lived there. They argued that luminol reacts to many household cleaners, not just blood, and that doing laundry at 3 a.m. is a symptom of insomnia, not a symptom of guilt. They called the evidence circumstantial. They argued that without the bodies of Lily and Jack, the prosecution was trying to build a mountain out of a molehill of soap suds and bleach. But the prosecution countered with the totality of the evidence. It wasn't just the laundry. It was the purchase of the bleach, the neighbor's testimony of the garbage bags. the changing stories, and the missing linens. The washing machine wasn't a smoking gun. It was a smoking engine, a piece of a larger puzzle that, when assembled, left no room for routine explanations. It has now been 8 months since that May morning in Lansdowne Station. The 4 square kilometers of woods have been searched until the earth was turned, but no trace of Lily or Jack Sullivan has been found. The search has been scaled back, but the investigation in the laboratory has never stopped. The RCMP Major Crime Unit continues to refine the timeline. Every digital ping from cell towers, every frame of surveillance footage, and every microscopic fiber from that washing machine is being prepared for potential trial. The legal standard for beyond a reasonable doubt is a high bar, especially in a case without a primary crime scene or recovered victims. Prosecutors are currently determining if the forensic evidence from the washing machine, combined with the behavioral inconsistencies, is enough to secure a conviction. They are looking for the anchor evidence, the one piece that can survive the scrutiny of a defense cross-examination. The Sullivan case serves as a haunting reminder of how forensic science has evolved. A decade ago, the digital logs of a washing machine would have been ignored. The DNA in a drain trap might have been lost. Today, the very appliances we use to clean our lives can be the ones that store our darkest secrets. As the investigation continues, the community of Pictou County remains in a state of suspended grief. The silence of the woods is matched only by the silence of those who were in the house that night. But as the RCMP continues to analyze the shocking findings from that small laundry area, they remain committed to one goal: finding the truth for Lily and Jack. The washing machine has yielded its data, the chemicals have been identified, and the timeline is set. Now, it is up to the justice system to decide if the story told by the machine is enough to provide the answers a grieving province is waiting for.